How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Lamed Tes, Daf 39 of Masechta BavaMetzia. Friends. Yo, friends. Alright, Chaver, here is the deal with Daf Lamed Tes. My guess is it's going to be a humongous. My guess is it's going to be a really, really long daf. That's my guess. Because we basically need to do a daf and a half. Because we basically have like all of Lamed Ches, Amud Beis to do, kind of. And it's kind of a big one. And all of Lamed Tes, and it's not easy. So now the kind of weird, eerie thing about daf Lamed Tes is that a lot, it talks, I'd say, primarily almost about a concept that I feel like should be theoretical, and whenever it's come up in the past, I think I always related to it more in a theoretical way, but it's kind of, I don't even know what the word is, but the fact of the matter is that it's lemaise nowadays, right now. It's just so weird how you would think that like certain things are behind us, but they are totally not. And that topic is hostages. Like I feel like in the past, the Gemara talks about like pidyon shvuyim or whatever, and like, you're going to do pidyon shvuyim or whatever. And it's like, you think, oh yeah, back in the times of the Gemaras, crazy stuff happened and it was super random. But I mean, hardcore, it's like, it's real, and it's insane how like this should not be happening right now, but it is. And so today's Gemara is talks to a large degree about hostages and what do you do with their property? It's weird, but it's just ridiculous that this is like actually a thing right now. Anyways, it's very strange, like learning these Gemaras, and I don't know. Yeah, whatever. You'll see for yourself and relate to it how you do it. Like I don't even like know what to make of it. It's like the kind of thing that you really want to like think that like it doesn't happen these days, but like it's literally what's happening right now. It kind of blows your mind a little bit. Alright, so we're going to start on Daf Lamed Ches Amud Beis at the 2 dots, about 5 lines into the Daf. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer Yimkirei Bebezdim Mipnei Shukameshiv Aveda Le Bailim. Okay, so this is going back to our Mishnah, of course. We saw Machloikes in our Mishnah that if Shimon deposited fruit with Ruvain, and the fruit is deteriorating, it's going bad, and so the shaila is, should you sell them to salvage them or not? So the Tanna Kama says no, leave them, just leave them, and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says sell them. Okay, fine. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer Yimkrim bebezdin, you should sell them in bezdin, because you're basically returning a lost object to its owner, right? The fruit is going to be lost unless you salvage it, so you can then return it. Itmar, we stated Reb Abba Reb Yaakov Reb Yochanan Alocha Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says Reb Abba Reb Yaakov in the name of Reb Yochanan that Alocha is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. V'Rave Amar Rav Nachman Alocha K'divrei Chachamim. Whereas Rave says in the name of Rav Nachman that the Alocha is take like the Chacham, that you should not sell the produce. It's take, we just changed the clocks on Thursday night, and now it's becoming springtime, and I think this time of year, this is like when the sun starts kind of coming right through the kitchen window, right into my eyes, if I'm recording during this hour. Alright, hopefully it won't be too abrasive. I know in the past I've had to like figure out what to do about it. Alright. Viho Amar Rabbi Yochanan Chada Zimna. But now the Gemara asks a Gevaldiga Kasha, an awesome Kasha. But don't we already know this? Meaning, Rabbi Abba Rabbi Yaakov says, Niv Rabbi Yochanan, that the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Duh! Didn't Rabbi Yochanan already say? These are like one of these Rabbi Yochanan isms. Dam Rabba B'chad Am Rabbi Yochanan Kol Makom Sheshana Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel B'Mishnah Seina Halacha Kimosu Chutz Mi'ar V'Tzidim V'Raya Achron. That says Rabba B'chad the name of Rabbi Yochanan that whenever you have Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel in a Mishnah, the halacha is always like him. There are 3 exceptions, but other than those 3 exceptions, the halacha is always like him. And when I say Rabbi Yochanan isms, there's Rabbi Yochanan also says halacha kistam Mishnah. And Rabbi Yochanan says that whenever they're at this principle now here, that whenever we have Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel in the Mishnayos, the halacha is like him. So Amorai Ninu V'Alibud Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara answers, look, Rabbi Yaakov didn't understand that statement in the same way. We usually understand that when Rabbi Yochanan says, whenever you have Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel in the Mishnah, the halacha is like him, that's literally what it means. Rabbi Yaakov didn't understand it that way. What does Rashi say? Rabbi Bechlale Am Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Amar La Bechlale Am Rabbi Yochanan. Eliyesh Men Shalacha Kamos. So look, yeah, I guess Rabbi Yaakov didn't understand it. I don't know. Maybe he heard the statement differently. Whatever it is, he didn't understand that Rabbi Yochanan's opinion is that whenever we have Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel in the Mishnayos, the halacha is like him. Now, this is very interesting because there's that principle from Rabbi Yochanan of halacha kistam Mishnah. And we saw elsewhere, I don't remember where it was, maybe in Gittin, maybe in Kedushin or something, we saw in another place that I think Rabbi Chia bar Abba didn't necessarily hold that way, right? So it's interesting, we have these 2 klaus of Rabbi Yochanan. One is that the halacha is like stam Mishnah, but apparently not all of his students understood that to be his view. And also we have this, that whenever you have Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel in the Mishnayos, the halacha is like him with, aside from 3 exceptions. But again, not all of his students necessarily understood that to be his opinion. So very, very interesting. So it's interesting because I feel like the concept of halacha kistam Mishnah, I feel like people relate to it as if like it's a general rule that's accepted. But first of all, it's just the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Technically, it's not like it's Rabbi Yochanan's, sort of principle. And even his students don't necessarily all agree with him. So it's interesting. Okay, now, Midu Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel nishma de moridin karov lenichse shavui. Midu Rabbanan nishma de ein moridin karov lenichse shavui. Okay, so now what happens if you have a person, a yid, who lived in one of the kibbutzim near the border with Gaza? On October 7th, the Rishonim from Gaza came and took them as a hostage to one of the hospitals over there in Gaza. And now they have a field, and the field is deteriorating. So what do? So we want to sort of explore if we could learn from our Mishnah, which discusses, Shimon deposits fruits by Reuven, and the fruits are deteriorating. So, do you step in to salvage them or not? So, what do if a person has been taken as a hostage to Gaza? So his property, what do you do with it? Do you let it deteriorate? Do you step in to try to salvage it? So what do you do? So Midu Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel nishma. So from Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, we could. It's crazy. I mean, if we learned this Gemara a year ago, it would have been totally theoretical. But now it's totally not theoretical. It's crazy. Midu Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel nishma de moridin karov lenichse shavui. So from Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says that you sell the fruits to salvage them. So the moridin karov lenichse shavui. So here also, if somebody is taken hostage, so one of the relatives will go to the field in order to take control and prevent it from deteriorating. Midrabanan nishma, and from the rabbis, the Tanakama, who says no, leave the fruits, just let them be. So let nishma de ein moridin karv l'nichsei shavui, that a relative would not go, right? That the Bezdin would not kind of tell the relative to go to the property of the hostage take control over it and just let it be. Umimai, how do we know that we can necessarily draw these parallels? Dilma ad kan lo kam Reb Shimon ben Gamliel hacha. Maybe Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says by the fruits that they should be sold. Ela mishum dika kalya karne, because the fruits, they are going to get ruined, and once they are ruined, there is no way to fix them, right? If you have, I don't know, figs, and the figs are getting all wormy and stuff, I mean, you can't just like pour water on them and they'll and they'll come back to life. I mean, once they're ruined, it's permanent. Aval hasam, but when it comes to a field, the property itself, the land itself, hochinami de'ein moridin. Maybe Reb Shimon ben Gamliel would say that by a field, the land itself isn't going to be ruined, right? Of course, as we know, the story of the Tzionim in Eretz Yisrael, they came to Eretz Yisrael and they found a land that was sleepy for a very long time, and they made it bloom. So we see that the land itself would be fine. So meaning, even though Reb Shimon ben Gamliel would say that the fruits should be sold, because maybe that's just dafka, because if you don't sell them, they're going to be completely ruined and unsalvageable. But land, the land will be just fine. So maybe Reb Shimon ben Gamliel would say, just leave it alone. And maybe the reason why the Tanna Kama says leave the fruits alone, well, Ikra of Kahana, Ikra of Nachum bar Yitzchak. Well, we gave two explanations. Rav Kahana said, Adam rotze b'kav shlo mitisha kavin shel chavero. Rav Nachum bar Yitzchak said that he's concerned about Trumas Amaisis. So there are reasons for that. Aval hasam, when it comes to the nichsei shavui, hachinami dimoridin. But maybe in that case, taka, we would step in to salvage the property. So then maybe the trade time in inu. Okay, so initially we wanted to kind of link the opinions of the Tanna Kama and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel respectively with and project what their opinions would be vis-a-vis Moridin Karv the Nichsei Shavui. Right, that initially we wanted to say that if the Tanna Kama says that you leave the fruits alone, so then also you would leave the field alone. And if Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says that you sell the fruits to salvage the fruits, so you would also, have a relative go to salvage the field. But then we said, no, maybe they are not linked. So it says the Gemara, maybe the trade time in. So you're saying that they are not linked, and there are two separate rationales for the fruits and the Nichsei Shavui. V'amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, but Rav Yehuda says the name of Shmuel, halacha Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. The halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, that you would salvage the fruits. V'amar Shmuel moridin karv the Nichsei Shavui. And Shmuel also says that the relative would go to the property of the hostage in order to salvage the property. So lab mishum dechataimu, doesn't that imply that it's the same rationale that if you say sell the fruit, you'd also say salvage the field? I guess technically if you say salvage the fruits, then also salvage the field. Lo, nisht, trei taimeininu. No, they are two separate, sort of need to be viewed in each in their own context, because Achinam Mistava, this taka makes sense. The Amar Rabba, the Amar Rave, Amar Rav Nachman, says Rav in the name of Rav Nachman, Halacha K'divrei Chachamim, that the halacha is taka like the Chacham, that you leave the fruit alone, and yet, V'amar Rav Nachman, the Rav Nachman says, Morid and Karv, the Nichsei Shavui, that we do, however, have a relative go to the property of the hostage to salvage it. So they are two separate things, right? So you can have Rav Nachman on the one hand saying that the halacha by the fruits is to leave them alone, and yet when it comes to the Nichsei Shavui, that you should try and help out. So Ela Shmamina, Treitaimin Shmamina. So rather they are two set, each one has to be sort of understood separately. Understand the fruits that are deteriorating separately and the Nichsei Shavui separately. Itmar was stated, Shavui Shenishba. Okay, so you have a person who's taken hostage. Rav Omar Ein Moridin. So Rav says that you don't send the relative to the field. Ein Moridin Karav L'Nechasav. Shmuel Omar Moridin Karav L'Nechasav, where Shmuel says a relative should go and help out and salvage the field. Now, b'shasham mushameis, if they find out that the Rishoyim killed the hostage, like they did with many of them. So if they heard that the Rishoyim killed the hostage, so the hostage is no longer alive. So then it's no longer a concept of nichsei shavui. It's a concept of inheritance. So then so obviously then the heirs would inherit the property. This machlokas is when they have no, right, kind of like the Metzias right now. Nobody's heard, nobody's seen, or it's mamish the same case. It's ridiculous as it is. Right, in 2024, this is just as relevant as it was in the year 24. And so then so nobody's seen or heard of that from the hostage in 5 months, and so now they don't know. So he's be'etzim, all they know is that he's a hostage in some hospital in Gaza, and but nobody's seen or heard from him. There's no more information. So Rav Omar ein moridin. So Rav says that you don't go into the property, you just leave it alone. Dilma mafsidlu, because Rav's concerned that if you have somebody, a relative, who's just temporarily, hopefully, going into the field, right? But the relative knows that, hopefully, we hope and we pray that, that very, very soon, the relative is going to be coming back. So, meaning the hostage is going to come back. So the relative who's coming to the field may have kind of a short-term view of how to plant the field, meaning and therefore they might overplant it, not fertilize it properly, because they're much more concerned about the short-term gains rather than sort of the long-term health of the field. So Rav says the relative should not go to the field because we're concerned that the relative might ruin the field. Shmuel says that the relative should go to the field because since we said Shaiminon lehu ke'oris lo mafsid lehu, because the thing is that when the relative goes to the field of the hostage, and if the relative invests money to improve the field and to fertilize it and to really work it properly, well then if the relative has not yet made back the investment, they are entitled to take a percentage of the fruits of the crop, like a sharecropper would. Whether the minig of the area is that the sharecropper can take a quarter of it, a third of it, half of it, whatever it might be. So the relative would be able to enjoy from the benefits of the field, like a sharecropper would, and therefore the relative would treat the field properly. Okay, so Meis ve'Rabelazar, Omer says Rabelazar, Mimajma shene'emar v'chora api varagti eschem. So it says in the Torah that that if we're no good, then the Eibishter will get upset and kill us. So obviously, if we're going to be killed, so then the wives are going to be widows, and the children will be orphans. Then why does the pasuk then need to continue and say, not only will I kill you, but also your wives are going to be widows and your sons are going to be orphans? Shouldn't that be obvious? Well, it means that their wives are going to want to get remarried, but they won't be able to because they won't have proof that their husbands are actually dead. So meaning it's talking about a scenario. Meaning, so what we're learning out from this part of the pasuk is a scenario where the Yidden are taken hostage, and the wives are unable to get remarried because their husbands are they don't know their fate. They don't know the fate of their husbands in Gaza, and their children want to go to their father's property, and we don't allow them to. So it sounds like what the Brisa is saying is that the relatives cannot go to Nichsei Shavui, right? The Pasuk is talking about a scenario where there are hostages and the relatives are not able to go to the field, right? We're saying, right? The V'nei Rotzen Leir the Nichsei Avin Ve'manichin Osan. So Amar Rava says not necessarily. You could say that the relatives can go to the field in order to work the field and to improve it. Layered v'limkor tanan, that when it says that they cannot go to the field, it means to sell the field. They can't sell the field because hopefully their father is still alive, but they don't know. But they would be able to work the field and sort of improve the field. There was unfortunately once this case in Narda with a hostage. And Rav Sheshes said, well, we have this brisa that we just quoted, which says that the children will be that they want to go to their father's property, but they can't. So Rav Sheshes wanted to say that the relative cannot go to the property of the hostage. So Rav Am says to Rav Sheshes, but maybe it's like Rava said though, that they can go to work the field, they just can't sell the field. So Rav Sheshes responds, are you nuts? You know what, Rav Am? Maybe you come from Pumbedisa, where they like to try and fit an elephant through the hole of a needle, something which is absolutely ridiculous. Maybe you're ridiculous like the people of Pumbedisa. The pasuk is talking, it says, right? It says, right, it's comparing the predicament of the wives to the predicament of the children. So just like by the wives being widows and being unable to get married, it means they're widows and unable to get married. They'll be widows yet unable to get married at all. So also the children are going to be orphans and unable to go into their father's property at all. So if Sheshes is pretty convinced that it means that the children cannot go into the property at all. Alright, so this next chunk of the Gemara, I think is like a little weird, for me at least. But, alright, hopefully it'll be understandable enough. Okay, and whether or not a karov, a relative, an heir, would go to the property of the hostage to work the field, it's taka machlokas tanoim, right? Whether the relative goes or not, whether we send the relative or not. Tanoi, the Tanya is willing to buy shavui. So somebody who goes to the property of a hostage, then we would not take it away from him. I guess whatever work he's done over there, and he takes from it. Not only that, even if they hear that that the hostage has been freed and he's on his way back, and he quickly grabbed some stuff from the field and ate it. Okay, well, he was very zariz. What's the word? How do you? I don't know. Expedient. I don't know. And he zealous maybe. And he gained from it. Okay, so basically, moridin karov lenichsei shavui. And this is a scenario that would be considered nichsei shvuyin. If his father or his brother or somebody who would bequeath him, they went traveling someplace, and then word got back that they died. So that would be a scenario of nichsei shvuyin that you can go into. Okay. If you go to abandoned, something that was sort of property that somebody was forced to abandon, motziin also miyado, so it can be taken from him. Meaning, so if you go and take it, so then that's not allowed. We'll take it back from you. And this is a scenario of nichsei netushim, abandoned. Oecha min Amorishin, his brother or his father or somebody who would bequeath to him, Ochlem din asayam, they went to Medina Sayam, v'lo shamu b'hem shemes, and they didn't hear that they were dead. Okay, and I think that we're saying that this is kind of similar to the hostage scenario where we don't know what happened, and we're saying that in this case you are not allowed to. But we would take it away. Wait, so what do we say? I think we would take it away from you, right? Yeah, exactly. We said also we would take it away from you, so it's not allowed. But Reb Shimon Gamliel says the netushim is like the shvuyim, i.e. that they would be allowed to go. So I think that that's the point, that the Tanakama is saying that by the shvuyim you would not be allowed to ein moridin karav l'nichsei shavui, but Reb Shimon Gamliel would say moridin karav l'nichsei shavui. I think. Hayorid l'nichsei retushim, if you go into a voluntarily abandoned field, motziin osam yado, we will extract it from the person who goes in there. Ve'elui nichsei retushim, these are these voluntarily abandoned fields. Haresha yo'aviv o achiv o echad min amorishin kan, he's here. Ve'eino yodei le'echan ochu, but we don't know where they went. Okay, so you can't take that field. Okay. Maishna hanach dekarlu netushim, maishna hanu dekarlu retushim. What's the difference between nitushim and ritushim? Nitushim de bal korcho. Nitushim is when it's abandoned against his will. That it says by shmita. Then shmita you have to make your fields hefker, right? So it says tishmetena, they have to kind of rest. Unetashta, you have to abandon it. Afkaita de Malka, the king says, right? The Eibishter says, you have to abandon it. You have to make it hefker against you. You don't have a choice in the matter. Ritushim de midaitan, but ritushim is when they've been abandoned voluntarily, or at least with acknowledgement. Tichsev aim al bonim rutasha, mother on children abandoned voluntarily. Okay. Tana, we start in a brisa. V'chulam, and in all of these cases, shamalayim ki'aris, they are evaluated. So we treat them like a sharecropper, and they could take, a portion of the field. Ahaya. When we say that they are treated like a sharecropper, what are we talking about? We're talking about shvuyim. We're talking about ritushim, nitushim. What are we talking about? Ilema shvuyin. If we're talking about on the first case in the brisa, which was the shvuyim, but we said by the shvuyim that they can keep it. So Asher Zar is v'niskar hava, right? We said that even if he hears that the hostage is on his way back, if he quickly grabs stuff from the field, he can keep it. He can keep it. So he can keep all of it. Be'etzim, he can take it away. Whatever he takes, he can keep. So what do you mean that he's like a sharecropper that he gets a percentage of it? He can take all of it. So where am I? So ilema ashvuyin Asher Zar is v'niskar hava. My de ashbach miboya. I mean, what you can say he's gonna be treated like a sharecropper who gets a percentage. What, he can take all of it. But when it comes to that first scenario of shvuyin, ela ritushim. Okay, well if you say we're talking about ritushim, but mutziin also miyado katanu. By ritushim, we said that he can't have any of it. So then mimele, if he can't have any of it, so then what do you mean he can have a portion of it like a sharecropper? He can't have any of it. So ela nitushim. Okay, so maybe it's talking about nitushim. So nitushim was a machlokas. Tanakama said he can't have any of it. Rav Shimon Gamliel says that he can. So leman ilem the rabbanon no ame motziin also miyodo. Well, if it's like the rabbanon, the rabbi said that he can't have any of it. So Rav Shimon Gamliel, if it's Rav Shimon Gamliel, ha'omer shamati shanitushim kishvuyin. The Rav Shimon Gamliel says that nitushim is like shvuyin, which we said zar is v'niskar, he could have all of it. So kishvuyin v'lo shvuyin. Well, no. So nitushim is like shvuyin, but also not like shvuyin. Kishvuyin de motziin osun miyada. Well, like shvuyin, that we're not going to take it away from him. V'lo shvuyin de ilu asum zars v'niskar v'ilu acha shamini le'ka'aris. But not exactly like shvuyin, because there we said zars v'niskar, he can have all of it. But over here by nitushim, where it's been abandoned against his will, so then it would be, he only gets a percentage of it, like a sharecropper. Not all of it. Why is this any different than the Mishnah? That if somebody right, that his wife, brought in nichsei melug, some property that belongs to her, but he can have the paris, and he invested in the property. Hotzi harbi v'achal kima, he invested a lot, but only got to eat a little bit of it. Kima v'achal harbi, he only invested a little bit, but got to receive a lot of it. Mashotzi hotzi mashachal achal. Whatever he invested, whatever he ate. So therefore, meaning, we don't say that he's treated like a sharecropper and he gets a percentage of the field. No, whatever he got, whatever, just wherever things were at the time when they got divorced, whatever, and that's that. There's no sharecropper arrangement after that. So Ladami El Laha. So the Gemara says, well, the truth is that it's really where it's more similar to is Hamotzi Otzos Al Nichse Ishto Ketana. That what if a person is married to a ketana and not midoraisa, right? Meaning her father died and her mother or her brother married her off. So now she's only married midorabanan and she can always just leave with meun. She could just say, hey, I'm not into this. So now he's kind of like in a weird spot, right? The husband. Because does he invest in the field? If he invests in the field, she could just walk out the next day. So that's kind of similar to this case also of the hostage, right? That does he invest in the field? Hopefully the hostage will be freed that day, right? And so it's kind of like an awkward scenario. So we say amotzi otzos anichse ishto ketano kimotzi al nichse acher domi. So it's like somebody who invests in somebody else's field as a sharecropper. Amakemen delo samcha daite takinu le rabbanon. So we see that by a person who's married to a kohen, since he's kind of like in this awkward state because he doesn't know, on any day his wife who's a katana can just leave and then he loses the property. So they made from a takana kiechi dulo lef sadinus that he shouldn't ruin the field, right? Because if he's got this scenario where every day could be the last day that he has access to this field, he's not gonna he's gonna prioritize short-term gains versus the long-term out of the field. So therefore the Chacham said, no, even though, yes, it's correct that your wife could just leave you on any day, but nonetheless, you will be if you've invested more than you've received, right? If you invested $1,000 in the field, but you've only received $500 worth of fruits, you can continue to receive a percentage of the field as a sharecropper until you've made back your money. Wait, where am I? So we say the same thing over here by the hostage scenario. Takinu le rabbanon kiechi to the sadinu. The rabbanon said that he can, take a percentage of the field, so that he will take, until at least he gets back his investment, so that he will take proper care of the field. When we say that all of them are treated like a sharecropper, that is to include what else? To include that which Rav Nachman says in the name of Shmuel Shavui Shenishba, that a hostage, Muridin Karv L'Nechasov, a relative can go and take care of the field. Okay. Yotzal Adas, if a person left his field knowingly, willingly, I think, in Muridin Karv L'Nechasov, so then a relative would not go take care of the field. Rav Nachman Didei Omar says Rav Nachman himself, not in the name of Shmuel, that somebody who runs away, is forced to run away, is like a hostage. Why is he running away? If it's because of the tax, right? He needs to pay taxes because he doesn't have money to pay taxes, so he's scared of the government, so he runs away. But Hanul Adas, that's with not, right? He's sort of willingly, it's not like a last minute, it's not like on October 7th where they just kind of came, and if they didn't kill you, then they took you. In this case, this is somebody who doesn't have money, so he knows he's gonna have to make a run for it. So then he should have made arrangements properly. Ela borech machmas mardin. Rather, if he killed somebody, and therefore the authorities are gonna come after him, and he's gotta leave town quickly. So in that case, we would say moridin karov l'nichse to his property. And I guess in that scenario, I think the point is that he would be treated like a sharecropper, and if they come back and he invested in the field, he'd be able to get a percentage of the field, I think, until he makes back his investment. Amar Vida Amar Shmuel Shavui Shenishba. So so this of course happened in Eretz Yisrael this year. If a yid was taken hostage, veiniach kama liktzor, and he had a whole field that needed to be harvested. Mamish, that's exactly what happened, right? There were, of course, the Yidden were taken hostage. The foreign workers were taken hostage. Everybody was taken hostage. There was nobody to work the fields and to pick the produce. So shavish and ishba. So a person was taken hostage. V'niach kamaliktzor, and there was wheat to be harvested. And oven livtzor, grapes to be graped. Tamarim ligdor, dates to be dated. Zaysim limsok, and olives to be olivized, meaning to harvest all these things, to harvest wheat, to harvest grapes, to harvest dates, to harvest olives. Bezdin Yarden L'Nchasav U'Ma'amidin Apotropos. So Bezdin steps in and appoints a representative, an apotropos, to sort of to just like quickly get in there and harvest everything so that nothing gets ruined. V'kotzer v'otzer v'goder u'mosek, and he harvests the crop. And once things have sort of the immediate need has been addressed, moridin karv l'nechasov, so then we entrust it with a relative to kind of take it from there. V'lukim apotrope le'olam. Why don't we just keep the apotropos there, the representative there, the whole time? Apotrope l'diknone lo mukminam. Because it's very interesting. If I understand correctly, we don't appoint apotroposes for adults. Whenever we talk about an apotropos, it's always, so far, I think it's always been in the context of yisomim, of kids, right? You have these kids who their parents, the father's gestorben, and now who's going to take care of their needs? So they appoint an apotropos to take care of the inheritance and all that kind of stuff, right? I think we've always seen an apotropos in the context of representing kids. And therefore, we're saying the same thing here, that sort of as an immediate measure, so the court will appoint an apotropos to just kind of make sure that everything gets harvested and nothing gets ruined. But once that's kind of once that fire has been put out, so then the relatives would kind of take it from there, because we don't sort of generally appoint long-term apotroposes for adults. Okay. Omar. Okay, so now we have a shtickle BavaMetzia. Shtickle BavaMetzia. Shtickle BavaMetzia. Ha ha, hoo, ha ha. Shtickle BavaMetzia. Shtickle BavaMetzia. You'll see. Throughout the rest of the daf, this is going to be shtickle BavaMetzia. So now, where are we? Amar Ravuna says, Ravuna, ein moridin ko'in l'nichsei shavui. Okay, so what if the hostage was taken hostage, and the sort of closest heir is a minor? The closest heir is, let's say, his son or whatever, and he's a minor. So ein moridin ko'in l'nichsei shavui. Right. So even though we said that moridin karov l'nichsei shavui, but if that relative, if that heir is a minor, so then that minor would not go. V'lo karov l'nichsei ka'in, and not a relative to the inheritance of a ka'in. So let's say you have Yaakov. I told you, BavaMetzia. You have Yaakov. Yaakov, of course, is the father of all the Shvatim, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. You have Yaakov. Yaakov has two sons, Reuven and Shimon. Reuven is a minor. Shimon is an adult. So now, right, what do we say? So if Yaakov dies, and now the estate is inherited by Reuven and Shimon, now Reuven is a minor, so Shimon, of course, we get half the estate. Reuven gets half the estate. We don't allow Shimon to kind of take care of Reuven's half of the inheritance for him. And now we kind of kick it up in order of magnitude. V'lo karov machmas karov l'nichsei ka'in. BavaMetzia. Order of magnitude. This talks about a scenario where Yaakov has two sons, Reuven and Shimon. As we just said, Reuven's a minor, Shimon's an adult. Okay, Yaakov is married to two women, Sarah and Rivka. That's how you know, BavaMetzia. Once we're bringing out Sarah and Rivka and Yaakov and Reuven and Shimon, there's going to be a Levi in a minute. But don't worry, we're not there yet. So, Reuven's mother is Sarah, Shimon's mother is Rivka. Yaakov dies, so the inheritance goes based on the father. Okay, so Reuven and Shimon both have the same father, Yaakov, so they divide up the inheritance in half. Thing is, Reuven is a minor. So Shimon says, I have an idea. My mother, Rivka, has another son, Levi, from a different father. So my brother, would that be considered a brother? I don't know. Is that a brother or a half brother? They have a different father but the same mother. That's a brother, right? Why not? Anyways, so I think so Shimon has this brother Levi. So Shimon says, I have an idea. Reuven and Levi have no relation, right? Reuven's father is Yaakov, his mother is Sarah. Levi's father is whoever his father is, his mother is Rivka. So Shimon says, I have an idea. Why doesn't my brother Levi take care of Reuven's property for him? So that's that case. So again, Amr Ravuna says, Ravuna, ein moridin ka'in lenichsei shavui. We don't, if the closest heir to the hostage is a minor, he doesn't take care of the property. V'lokarv lenichsei ka'in. And if you have, Yaakov dies and Reuven and Shimon inherit him, Reuven's a minor, Shimon is an adult, Shimon cannot take care of Reuven's half of the inheritance for him. And not a relative of a relative cannot take care of Reuven's property, inheritance. Now, the reason why we do not have a minor take care of the property of the hostage is because Dilma Mafsid Lehu. Well, if he's a minor, what does he know? Right? He's a minor. He can't take responsibility for managing a field, so he's going to ruin the field. Also, Levi can't take care of Reuven's property for him. When we're taught, right, Shimon and Levi are brothers sharing the same mother. V'lokarov l'nichsei ka'in, as well as Shimon cannot take care of Reuven's property for him because since Reuven is not going to protest, because I guess, I don't know, he's a minor when it starts, and he just, it just kind of, things will just develop. So what's going to end up happening basically is Shimon or Levi is going to end up holding on to it forever. Right? That's the concern. The concern is that if Reuven and Shimon both inherit their father, and Shimon, in addition to taking his inheritance, he's kind of, quote unquote, also taking care of Reuven's inheritance for him, it's just kind of going to always stick with Shimon, and it's just never really going to leave Shimon's property. He's just always going to kind of hold on to it. So therefore we don't do these things. And the same thing with Levi. They're going to come up with some kind of claim that really it came from their brothers, from the mother, and that this thing really came to Shimon from his father. So they're going to come up with some scheme to end up messing over Reuven. So therefore, relatives need to kind of stay out of this. So Amar Rava says, Rava Shmaminu midu Rav Huna. So from these statements of Rav Huna, we learn in Machzikim b'nichsei koim v'afilu higdil, that from the fact that Rav Huna is be'etzem recommending that we need to get an unattached third party, an unrelated third party to take care of this scenario, to take care of the situation. That must mean that this unrelated third party would not ever be able to be koneh this Reuven's property with a chazaka, even if once Reuven is already an adult, this third party ends up holding onto the field for 3 years, he still would not be konet. Because then we'd be concerned that maybe the Kohen didn't realize what was going on. Like, as far as he was concerned, it always belonged to this third party. So, basically what Rav Huna is saying is get some third party to take care of it in the interim. That third party can never be konet, not with the chazaka, not when the kid's a minor, not when he's an adult. It can never belong to a third party. It will always be reserved for Ruvain. Because if we can have a scenario where this other uninvolved third party can hold on to it for like 3 years and then it becomes his, Reuven's going to end up getting messed up. So, therefore, from the fact that Rav Huna is saying, look, what you got to do is you got to get an unrelated third party, it means that the point is that unrelated third party will not be able to ever, mess over Reuven from getting his inheritance. V'lo amaron ela be'ache de'aba aval be'ache de'ima leislan ba. So when we say that Shimon can't take care of Reuven's property for him, that is when Reuven and Shimon have the same father. But if Reuven's mother Sarah had another son, Yehuda, from some other guy, so then Yehuda would be able to take care of it for Reuven. Even with Shimon, who shares the same father as Reuven, he can't take care of the property for Reuven, like a field for Reuven. But if there was a house that would go to Reuven, he could take care of that because apparently the neighbors would kind of know or something. We're going to reject this stuff in a second. And also, even when we say that Shimon can't go into Reuven's property, that's so long as there's no documentation, there's no shtar. But if there's a shtar, right, meaning when we say that Shimon cannot take care of Reuven's property for him, that's so long as there's no shtar. But if there's a shtar that says that the property belongs to Reuven, so what's the concern? We have documentation, we have proof that it belongs to Reuven. There's no possibility of foul play. Right? Kala it's the isla. Right? People would know about it, people would hear about it. Right? There's no chance that Shimon would end up messing over Reuven. V'loi, but none of this is true. Loshna achi da'aba, v'loshna achi da'ima. Loshna arisa, v'loshna bate. V'loshna ovid itda, loshna lo ovid itda. Lo mach tinan. None of this. I don't care if they share the same father, the same mother, if there's a shtar, no shtar, land, homes. None of this stuff. Get a third party to take care of it, and that is that. Alright, so now for some more BavaMetzia. We have 3 generations. We have a grandmother. The grandmother has 3 daughters. One of those daughters has a son who is a minor. The grandmother, along with one of the daughters, was taken hostage from her home on October 7th and brought to one of the hospitals in Gaza. The grandmother with one of her daughters. One of the other daughters died, was burnt alive in her home, in her safe room, and the third daughter was somewhere else for Simchas Torah. So Ayi Savta, so there was a grandmother, Tahavila Tlos Banta, that the grandmother had, and the grandmother had property. Okay, the grandmother had property. And it's going to be a question, what do we do with this property while they're locked in a room in one of the hospitals in Gaza? So Ayi Savta the Avila Tlos Banta, so there was a grandmother who had 3 daughters. Ishtaboy, they were taken hostage, Ihi V'chada Barta, the mother along with one of her daughters. Idoch Tarte Banta, and then in terms of the other 2 daughters, Shchiva Chada, one of them was burnt alive in her safe room. Chada Minayu. Vishavka Yenuka, and a little baby survived. There's a lot of cases like that, right? The parents were murdered, and there's orphans now with no parents. Their parents were killed in front of their eyes just a few months ago here in Eretz Yisrael. So now you have the baby survived. So Amr Abaye. So Abaye says, Heichi Naivid. Okay, so now what do we do? So what do we do? So what do we do? So what do we do? 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 basically who's left? A baby and one of the daughters. Now here's the challenge. If you give the property to the daughter, the adult daughter, to take care of kind of all of it, well, what happens if they were killed? If the grandmother was, let's say the grandmother and also the daughter who was taken hostage, they were both killed. So the problem is if the live daughter kind of takes care of all the property, well, then you would have karov b'nichsei, karov b'nichsei kohen, right? Because the aunt is a relative who would be taking care of her minor nephew's property, and that's not okay. And if we give it to the baby, well, what if they are still alive and we don't have a kohen b'nichsei shavui? So that's not allowed either. So what do we do? Okay. So what do we do? If we give all of the property to the live daughter, so Dilma Shchiva Savta, well, what if the grandmother is dead, and let's just say the daughter that was taken captive with her was also taken hostage with her is also dead. So now basically all of the property would be divided between the baby and the live sister. If that live sister kind of is taking care of all of it, so obviously she could take care of her half, but in terms of then she would be taking care of the nephew's half. And we don't do that. We don't have a relative kind of take care of the inheritance of the katan. And if we give all the property to the baby, well, duma lo shchiva savta, maybe they are still alive. And we don't appoint a kohen to the property of a hostage. So Rabbi Hilkach, therefore, palga yohivna la leachta. Okay, so half of it you could definitely give to one of the sisters. Okay, so if they're alive, so then it's karov b'nichsei shavui. If they're dead, so then she's inheriting her part. Ve'idach palgan, in terms of the half that would go to that's for the baby, mukmina le apetrope le'enuka, so we would appoint an apetropis for the baby, so that there won't be any concern about kohen b'nichsei shavui. Rav Omer migo de mukmina apetrope lepalga mukmina la apetrope lidach, and then Rav says, once already we need an apetropis for the baby, so let's just have an apetropis for all of the property. Fine. The Sof Shamu de Shchiva Savta. Okay, but then unfortunately they got news that unfortunately the grandmother was murdered by the Rishonim. And okay, so now it's a situation of inheritance. Okay, so in terms of inheritance, so in terms of the inheritance, so the grandmother is dead. So definitely the sister. Right, there were 3 sisters, so the live sister inherits a third of it. Now the baby inherits a third from his mother. And then the question is, what do you do with the other third? Because we don't know the status of the daughter who was taken hostage as well. So Mabai says, okay, so a third of it you give to the live daughter. A third of it you give to the baby who inherits from his mother who's no longer alive. So in terms of the third, which is for the daughter who was taken hostage, that we don't know, her status, if she's alive or dead. So okay, so half of her third you can give to the live sister. If she's, if the hostage is alive, so then it's karov b'nichsei shavui. If the hostage is dead, so then the live sister would inherit that. Ve'idach danka, and in terms of the other half of that third, so we can't give it to the sister, because to the live sister, because in the event that the hostage sister is dead, well then the baby would inherit that, and then that's an issue of karov b'nichsei kohen. So ve'idach danka, So with regard to the second half of the last third, mukmina la'apatropa li'anuka, so we would appoint an apotropis for the baby. Rav Omer says, Rav Migo de mukam apatropa d'danka mukmina nami apatropa li'danka. Whereas Rav says, look, once already we are appointing an apotropis for the sixth, essentially, for the half of the final third for the baby. So basically just appoint that entire third to the apotropis as well. Basically, that whole third would go to the apotropis according to Rav. Mori bar Isak. So Mori bar Isak apparently was a tough guy. He apparently was a tough guy. Mori bar Isak also lay acha mi bei chozai. Suddenly, a person showed up from Bei Chozai claiming to be Mori bar Isak's brother. And as his brother, he's claiming part of the family estate. Omle Plogli. And his brother comes and he says to Mori bar Isak, all right, I want my half of our family's estate. Omle lo yadainalo. Mori bar Isak says, I'm sorry, but I don't recognize you. I don't know who you are. Also, the Kamad of Chizda, so they came before Rav Chizda. Amarle, so Rav Chizda initially kind of took the side of Mori bar Isak, not exactly taking side, but he's saying, look, Shapir Karmelach. At the end of the day, Mori bar Isak is making he makes a good point. He's saying he doesn't know who you are. Shneimar, the passage says, Vayakar Yosef Esechov, Ve'im Kiru. It says by Yosef HaTzadik, when his brothers came to Mitzrayim in search of food. So it says that Yosef recognized them, but they didn't recognize him. That when Joseph was kidnapped and sent away from his brothers, so he didn't have a beard. But then, when the brothers came to Egypt, he had a beard, and they didn't recognize him. So here oichet. Right. So here oichet. Rav Chizda says, look, Mori bar Isak has a good point. He doesn't recognize you. When he left Bei Chozai, when you were a baby, he hasn't seen you since. He doesn't recognize you. So Amalei Zilaisi said the Achua At. So Rav Chizda says to the brother, look, just bring witnesses that you're in fact his brother, and then great, and then we'll divide it in half. Divide this say in half. Amalei Isli Saide, to which the brother says, look, I can bring witnesses. The problem is Vidachle Mine de Gavra Limo. Any witnesses that I would bring are scared of Mori bar Isak because he's a scary fellow. I don't know what he does, but it sounds like people were intimidated by him. So the brother says, look, I can bring witnesses, but they won't, I have witnesses, but they're not going to feel comfortable testifying in front of Mori bar Isak to say that half of his property goes to his brother. So Amar Le'Ledide, so Rav Chizda says to Mori bar Isak, Zilanta Aisi Saide de Lav Ochuchu. Okay, so Mori bar Isak, why don't you then bring witnesses that this fellow is not your brother? To which Mori bar Isak says, wait a second, he's coming to take property away from me. He's got to bring the burden of proof is upon him. To which Rav Chizda says to Mori bar Isak, not in this case. Look, you need to prove that the brother is that this person is not your brother. This is the law for, even though generally we say Amotzi Mechaver Olav Araya, not in this case. And I will say the same thing by all the intimidating, scary people of your ilk. Is ilk? Does that make sense here? So basically, Rav Chizda says, we're not going to let you intimidate people, intimidate witnesses, and therefore the burden of proof is now on you. Amalei, which Mori bar Isak says, look, sof also saide v'lo masaide. He says, all right, look, if you want me to bring witnesses, I'll bring witnesses. At the end of the day, they're going to testify whatever I tell them to testify. So what do you gain by putting the burden of proof on me? Witnesses are going to come. Obviously, they're going to testify in my favor. So Amalei Tarti lo Avde, to which Rav Chizda says, look, maybe if you're so scary, they'll keep their mouths shut and they won't say anything. But to then not just keep their mouths shut, but to go one step further, to lie, Rav Chizda says, I'm not concerned that that's going to be the case. The sof also sided the achua, who, and in the end, the brother, there ended up coming witnesses who testified that the brother is in fact the brother. Okay, so Mar Bar Yitzhak has a brother, and now they need to divide up the inheritance. So Amalei, so the brother says, okay, great. Liflog linamim pardeisai ubustani deshasal. So now the brother says, great. So now that I'm here, and it's been proven that it's been established that I am the brother, I want half of the orchards and the trees that my brother Mar Bar Yitzhak planted. Amalei, Shapir Karmelach. Rav Chisda says, okay, look, your brother is taka right. It's not. We're learning a Mishnah. Where's this Mishnah? Bava Basra. Okay, we'll get there. Cheve, this is exciting times, but we're already in the middle of BavaMetzia. Cheve, this is, I'm loving this. You're all loving this, right? This stuff is great. Nizikin. This is where it's at, man. This is, Cheve, we've learned a lot of Gemara. We've learned more than half of Shas, obviously. We've learned like most of the Yeshivish Masechtas. I don't know, are you guys feeling the same way I'm feeling? There's something unique about Bava Kama, BavaMetzia. It throws you into the heart of the Inyanim, like the heart of like the spirit of the Gemara, in like a way that no other Masechtas did for me. I think not that the other ones were lacking in any ways, but this is just full on. It's just full on. It's amazing. So anyways, so we're learning a Mishnah in Bava Basra that if there are, if the Yaakov dies and, there are two kids, Reuven and Shimon. Reuven's a minor, Shimon's an adult. And the adults were working the fields and improving them and growing them, etc. They still have to split it, right? So therefore, Mar Bar Yitzhak, if you planted these orchards and things like this, your brother still has a right to half of it. And so says Rabbah, that they have to kind of split it. Abai says, wait a second, but we can't compare those two. Look, when Yaakov dies and there's Reuven and Shimon is an adult and Reuven's a minor, Shimon knows that, like, okay, he's working the field, and he knows, he's got this brother. Half of the field belongs to the brother, and he knows that any of the work that he's doing is also going to be for his brother, and he's aware of that. But in this case, by Mar Bar Yitzhak, he was unaware that he had a brother. Therefore, he didn't know that he should, work the field to be and be mochel. So Abai says that this isn't, we can't necessarily bring that mission as a proof. The case found its way to Reb Ami. Amru, when he says to them, Gedolim izo amu, they said something even greater. Shomidlaim ke'aris. When it came to the hostage, we said that the relative can go into the field of this hostage, this field that does not belong to him, it's somebody else's field, and he can improve it and take up to 30% of it. So hashtadidei lo yavinun le, and here, where it is his field, certainly he should be entitled to at least 30% of the other half. Ajuaha l'kamid of Chisda, and this made its way back to Rav Chisda, that Mar Bar Yitzhak should be entitled to, like a sharecropper with regard to his brother's half of the property. Amrlu, and Rav Chisda says, wait, that's not comparable to the hostage. By the hostage, the relative was permitted, right? Bezdin says, go, take care of the field, and you'll be like a sharecropper. He didn't come, Mar Bar Yitzhak didn't go into his brother's property with Bezdin didn't tell him to go and plant his brother's half of the estate. Voda more so koinu. The brother is a kohen. Oh, I guess his brother is a kohen. Apparently, at the time that he occupied the field, I guess he's probably not a kohen now, because we were talking about that he has a beard, right? But okay, so I guess at the time that he went, though, the brother was a kohen. And a relative doesn't go to the property of a minor. So therefore, it wouldn't make sense to kind of say that Mari Bar Isak would be entitled to his brother's half like a sharecropper would be entitled. They returned to Rabami, Amar Lahu, and he said, lo saimu kame dekainhu. I didn't know that he was a minor, so therefore, right, totally. He would not then take the portion of his brother's inheritance as a sharecropper. That was Daf Lamed Tes of Masechta BavaMetzia. I actually think it wasn't super long. I thought it was going to be like 2 hours. I think it might be over an hour, but I don't think by much. It was a big daf and a half really. We talked about some interesting concepts of Moridin Karov Lenichse Shavui, that if a person is taken hostage, which is unfortunately a case now, does a relative go in to take care of the property? We saw it was Taka Machlokas. I think we say in the end, yes. We talk about if they would be able to be zocha like a sharecropper, other kind of related things. That was Daf Lamed Tes of Masechta BavaMetzia. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.